Hello, and welcome to the Fifth Observatory. These are my moth-killing hands. I don't actually kill many moths with it now. I have a spray.
You really hate those moths.
They ate one of my favourite, beloved, irreplaceable coats. Yeah, you say that in this tone of voice like that completely makes no sense. It was a beloved thing.
No, I understand. What makes no sense is blaming these particular moths as if they're part of the conspiracy that originally went after your coat, that's all.
Because, they've eaten... Let's see. They ate my coat. They ate one of my favourite suits. They ate one of my other coats, all right? It's the potential that all these creatures hold to destroy my irreplaceable, super expensive things. Also, I am Jed, and he is Tresh.
I am Tresh indeed, but maybe, Jed, they just want to see you naked.
Yeah, maybe they can die.
I was thinking, actually, this sounds like an episode of Rick and Morty or something like that. Those damn pervy moths.
I'm gonna kill him, Morty. I'm gonna kill all the moths, Morty. I'm gonna invent a ray that kills all the moths, Morty.
Oh, gee, Rick, why do you want to do that?
They ate my coat, Morty. It's the reason I always wear this scruffy lab coat, Morty. Is they're doing the beep.
Yeah, so I was like imagining like the cutscene to the actual moth says like, look at him, look at Rick, he's so sexy. Let's eat more of his clothes. Nom 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 nom.
I am going to kill them. I have the spray. It is filled. How did I?
No, what you done?
I heard a sound coming from below me. It's like I don't have anything down there that makes noises. Anyway, this is a very chaotic opening to this episode. Hello, people of YouTube. How are you? We're fine. Thank you for asking. I am frazzled. I am ultra frazzled. I got rained on earlier because I don't know how it is. I don't know how it is where you are, Tresh, but where I am, it is like been raining constantly for days.
Pretty much.
It's like we are in July. It is July. The heck? But,
but this is England. What can we say?
That is true. So yeah. I mean, apart from my hatred of moths, how are you?
Fine. I'm rather tired from the day job, but other than that, I'm fine.
That's fair. Happens to the best of us because nobody pays us to do this. If you want to start paying us to do this, I will not object.
Not until we've got another 50,000 viewers, I think. But
oh God, give it a few weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, we already gave it a few weeks, but who knows? Who knows? We may, in fact, hit the milestone sooner than we think. Or probably not, but never mind.
Yeah. No, if you're talking like that for the video, let's just keep it real, shall we? So, what we've been up to?
Well, first off, on a really random tangent, I realised which video game you were talking about in last week's episode.
Oh, yeah.
Silent Hills PT. Yes. Which I don't know. So, the thing is, it's interesting that you bring that up because there's an interesting coincidence to do with that I'm going to talk about. So, first off, what do you know about Silent Hills PT?
That one, nothing very much. I know I never played the Silent Hills, franchise, any of the games in general, but I know bits, mostly from watching the films. So, no, I don't know anything about that particular game other than what I saw on the YouTube video that I mentioned, which is more like, behind the scenes rather than showing the actual action. So, yeah, still nothing, basically.
Okay, so this is an interesting one. So you have to bear with me on this one, Tresh, because this may be the only interesting thing that I really have to talk about this week. Okay. So basically, there's a guy called Hideo Kojima, who is massive auteur game developer guy. Like he's behind a lot of interesting stuff, most of which is the Metal Gear series. So he did a lot of those. And he also did Death Stranding after PT happened. So what happened with PT was PT is the playable teaser for Silent Hills, which was meant to be like the next in the Silent Hill franchise of games.
Right.
And it was really well received. Everybody who played it absolutely adored it. Then Kojima got fired by Konami, the people who make Silent Hill, and PT was pulled from the PlayStation Store. So you can't get PT anymore on the PlayStation Store. It does not exist. Right. So the guy who data mined it to go behind the scenes, I haven't got a Scooby-Doo how he managed to do that, because that is not supposed to be on PC. you can go behind the scenes on stuff. You can do boundary breaking and stuff, but it is a lot harder, to my knowledge, to access console commands for something like a PlayStation. So that is truly impressive. So that was Silent Hills PT, which is all about this character going through this endless looping hallway, as you probably realized from watching that video, whilst being stalked by the ghost of Lisa, which is a creepy, scary, gonna break your neck lady from the video that was quite creepy. She was quite creepy. A lot of people are scared by that lady.
I can imagine. I can imagine when you're in a dark room alone playing the game, when you're really sort of intensely concentrating, and then...
Oh, yeah, especially when she's making these horrible moany, screamy, cry, laughy, scary noises. I just watched people playing it on YouTube who do that for a living, and I was scared out of my mind, so I don't know what it's like to actually play that stuff. I'm an Xbox person. Don't judge. But yeah, so what's sort of interesting to talk about in terms of Hideo Kojima, though, is so very recently, Hideo Kojima made a tweet about Zack Snyder's Justice League.
All right.
Basically, and he's got a lot of Twitter following, so he's got like a serious amount of Twitter following. And my Twitter sphere has been absolutely full of like Zack Snyder news and Zack Snyder's Justice League news, basically since Zack Snyder's Justice League came out and even beforehand. And the interesting thing that popped up is two interesting things popped up. The first of which obviously was that Kojima had obviously tweeted that support of Zack Snyder's Justice League, which I thought was really interesting because what you've got here is there's an interesting parallel between here's a mad auteur genius of the video game world who had a massive disagreement with the company that he worked with, ended up getting fired, and he never got to make his, grand magnum opus for them. But he ended up taking a lot of the cool stuff that he had from that and took it into the next game he made, which was Death Stranding, which had Norman Reedus in it the same way that Silent Hills did. You compare that to Zack Snyder, who, again, is this mad auteur genius who had a big falling out with the company that he worked with, leading to this messing around with his magnum opus, So I thought it was interesting to see one crazy mad auteur, supporting another. And a couple of interesting tidbits popped up. I suspect you saw one of them, so we'll talk about that one last. But the thing that popped up for me as well was I saw a tweet that basically amounted to somebody from HBO Max essentially saying that they didn't have a clue how well Justice League was doing on their service. They didn't know. They did not have those figures. Which, if that's true, that's either patently a lie or that's patently nonsense. Because they knew how well Wonder Woman was doing, So I don't like talking too much about this because obviously we want to make our podcasts about more than just, stuff that's annoying us. And especially since we spent the first 2-3 weeks talking about Zack Snyder's Justice League. But when you see a tweet like that, where these people are saying, we don't know how well this did, and that's apparently the case, that's like, how do you not know? Like either you're massively incompetent, which is bad, and you should not be in the job that you're in if you're massively incompetent, at that level, or that information is in some respects politically inconvenient for them. Like in terms of office politics, in terms of the political sphere that is the Warner Brothers environment, so to speak. So it just bothers me that that's the case, because that's way wrong. Don't you think?
Yeah, I didn't see this. I didn't see the tweet that you're referring to, so I don't know exactly what was said. But
it's a tweet on Twitter, so it might not be true.
Yeah, I saw something similar to that a few weeks ago, where someone was basically trying to imply that the Zack Snyder's Justice League was, the ratings were going down. It didn't perform as well as expected, and people weren't going back to rewatch it, and blah 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 blah. Then, unprompted, news came out about the actual ranking system, and it actually ranked number one or very high in this ranking system. And Zack Snyder actually retweeted it oh, thanks for the love kind of thing, which completely contradicted this other tweet that was saying, oh, it's doing really bad. Have you seen the official statistics? And I think also when they say not performing well, I think some people are saying people didn't join HBO Max to watch it, and that's what they mean, as opposed to how many people have actually watched it. Who already have HBO Max, how many people have gone back and rewatched it? How many times has it been watched in total? A lot of people are saying, well, they expected another 5 billion people to join HBO Max, and that many people didn't, so it's underperformed. But but yeah, how much truth of that, I don't know. I mean, that's, as you said, the office politics in the actual thing. I mean, who knows? But if anybody is sort of like half in the know, they shouldn't really be spouting that kind of bullshit anyway. They should be keeping that to themselves. That's very unprofessional.
It's very unprofessional, and it's likely to get them blacklisted if people find out it's them.
Yeah.
So, that's not brilliant for them. But that sort of ties into a different bit of Snyder news, which is, did you see this thing about the next movie project that he's working on?
What's that one?
So basically, like a long time ago, Zack Snyder pitched a Star Wars movie. And
right.
obviously Lucasfilm didn't want to make it because this was right before the Disney thing. But he's turned it into an original universe. He spent a few years turning it into an original universe. And he's making his own movie. I think I'll have to double check what it's called, like Rebel Star or something.
Right.
And it's
I've not seen that.
No, so like I'm gonna quickly.
So while you're looking up, then
Rebel Moon.
Just today, they're announcing. Well, they've announced some time back actually the links to the actual Army of the Dead universe. They were making a prequel starring, I was trying to get the thing up on my phone, but my phone's decided not to work. No, it's because it's already switched on. So I just saw it earlier today. I'm trying to find the name of the actual film, though. There we are. The Army of Thieves. So it's the prequel, and it's starring... Right, so I knew it was starring the guy, Matthias, who was the lockpicker. So it's starring him, and it's following him picking the locks, which it sort of leads up to why he's like so in awe of the lock in Army of the Dead, because it's part of this, like, if you're a lockpicker, it's like like, I don't know, going through a concert, and then this is like the final piece of the concert kind of thing. But yeah, I knew that he was actually in it, but I didn't realize that he's actually directing it as well. So that's actually has been filmed past tense, and it's actually going to be released fairly soon. Does it give dates on that one? No, just coming soon to Netflix. So that's on Netflix as well. So yes, I had not heard anything about this space story. So when you were saying about this other Zack Snyder news, because that's just popped up now, like literally today. So I thought maybe that's what you were talking about.
Okay, but no. So it's called Rebel Moon, and basically it's sort of half inspired by Akira Kurosawa and half inspired by Star Wars. So he's hoping to build a whole new IP out of it, basically. And yeah, I am legitimately excited because it's like, oh, okay, we're getting this now. Because I mean, like you watch the stuff that Snyder's done, like the opening scenes of Man of Steel, especially, but also like the battle scenes of, the flashback battle scenes of Justice League, where
I mean, not just that, but actually going back to Man of Steel, the stuff when General Zod's talking about they went to this planet and that planet, and it's showing like the flashback of them, like when they found the planet engine and stuff like that. It's like the scenes that he builds, those kinds of landscapes with all the details of spacecraft and the detailing on like the spacesuits of the dead people that this space station, this colony that didn't work out. It's like all that kind of thing. The world building just on that visual level is immense. So yeah, actually, like building on that, so like, okay, so this has been put there not just because it looks pretty, but it's actually a plot point to it as well, because it does like to lay a lot of those things down as well. So yeah, I can imagine it's going to be pretty cool. Actually, I didn't know anything about this before you mentioned it, so I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, like space opera as done by Zack Snyder. That's just going to be like seriously. Like, and the thing is, it's interesting that he brings up Akira Kurosawa because, like, it's one thing to say Star Wars, because if you go into Star Wars, people who are Star Wars fans, they might be fans for the bounty hunters, they might be fans for the space battles. You say Kurosawa, I mean, one of the key things that Kurosawa did that sort of inspired Star Wars was the stuff to do with samurai. So, what are we getting? Space samurai again? Are we getting Zack Snyder's take on space samurai? Oh my god! Like that's gonna be crazy. That's gonna be absolutely crazy. So, yeah, no, I'm super looking forward to that.
Yeah.
So yeah. There's one other bit of news that sort of popped out, which is that apparently the last episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds is being filmed, starting basically now.
Oh, right. I knew it was filming. I didn't realize it was that far ahead.
Oh yeah. So it's going to be another like couple of weeks before they're done with it, apparently. But yeah, so it's in production now. The last episode.
Then again, I suppose it's normally about a week an episode. I know they have been filming for a few weeks, so yeah, I suppose it does track. Yeah.
And yeah, I'm interested to see what goes on with that. They're obviously doing the whole thing with their teasing. Oh, big stuff is going to happen, so that's exciting. I
mean, I am an old school fan of Star Trek, like the old series. So yeah, it sounds like they're sort of aiming for more that kind of style. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
I mean, I made the joke. I replied to Anson Mount's tweet about it with basically, I want a Cage uniform. Give me a Cage uniform. But yeah, no, I think it'll be really interesting to see where they go with that. I'm hoping, against hope, that we get some kind of teaser trailer or something soon. I want to see the uniforms. I want to see what they've done to tweak the ship. I want to see this stuff, you know, so I can rant about it and be annoyed about it like a real fan. But yeah, so it's interesting to see that they're sort of, you know, like, you know, quite that far ahead in the production of it. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with that. So yeah. Anyway, that's all the interesting things that I have to talk about this week, apart from Loki, of course, which we have both just watched. So
yeah, so shall we jump into Loki then?
I suppose we should jump into Loki, really. And all right, I'm gonna round out my talking about stuff and sounding vaguely interesting for the week by sort of saying I didn't mind it. It was an interesting episode. It was fun, but if anything, I have sort of the opposite problem with it. To be honest, I didn't think it was padded. I think it was too packed. I think you've got this concept of an entire world at the end of time packed full of Lokis. Oh, spoiler warning, by the way. And it's like, I'm sorry, this is like half a movie in and of itself. This is like half a movie's worth of story in and of itself, and you're wasting it on like this relatively short episode, you know, which is bound up with all these other things. When it would be interesting to see this as its own thing, almost. You know, you get this problem.
I think it's, and for me, it's because they sort of went the comedy sort of direction with it. So instead of actually exploring this world, they just sort of like went, oh, and this wacky thing happens, and this wacky thing happens, and this wacky thing happens, and don't think about it too much because it's just wacky. Here's an alligator, wacky.
And don't forget Frog.
Frog, yes, for Frog.
Yeah. It's just.
Yeah, I mean, did spot that one as well. Yeah.
And then, of course, there's President Loki, which is Tom Hiddleston on like full. I'm back.
Yeah, well, a couple of them had the badges on though, so I'm guessing that he like gave those badges out to them, like, oh yeah, come and join me. And you know, the joke being that they're all Lokis as well, so it's like they're voting for themselves.
Basically, and yeah, I
mean, the thing that I don't world building. Okay, so the thing that falls down for me when it comes to world building is when they say this place at the end of the universe where time's still being made. It's like, well, that's the present. That's like literally now we are at the furthest point of the universe that's happened so far where time is being remade. You know, so if time is still being remade, then there is a point where you can then go back to the point when time was still being remade in this time at the end of the universe. So it's not the end of the universe because you could have gone back from this time. If you're in this place and time is still moving forward and being remade, it's not the end of the universe. So it's rather than the end of the universe, it's like a barrier of the universe kind of thing. But yeah, it's literally the end of the universe where time is being remade is literally the present, this second, right now. Apart from people watching this because we're recording it. So,
oh yeah, totally. For you, it's this second, right now.
Yeah,
for us, it's also this second, right now.
So yeah, so I mean,
timey-wimey.
They do it quite often, you know, when they talk about the end of the universe I'm a massive fan of Doctor Who, and they talk about it in Doctor Who, and it's like, well, no, there isn't actually an end of the universe like that. It's just going to like slowly fizzle out, and you know, scientists reckon it's just going to be like a very, very slow process of things drifting apart and like atoms degrading and all this kind of thing. There's not just going to be like a big bang and the end of the universe. It's just not how it works. So yeah, it's like, you know, as a little sci-fi thing, it's like, yeah, okay, you can use it, but and having a thing based around this is the end of the universe, and you know, this thing's going to eat up all the things to stop the, you know, so there can be no further point. But by actually existing and moving around and eating all the things, they're creating more time. So actually, they're doing the opposite of their job. But yeah. So other than that, though, so it was like more of a comedy episode than a serious episode. So they didn't really explore any of the themes or any of the just like the details that are around them. It's just like a show, like, oh, don't think about it too much. It's yeah, look, I'm dressed in a stupid version of the costume, whatever. Let's just move on with it. And you know, but then at the end, when like, you know, the clouds parted, and it's like, okay, what's that little Hogwarts-looking building there? Then wonder what that's all about. And I saw some things like floating past as well. And I couldn't make out if it was just like, rocks and debris floating past the space Hogwarts, or if it was actually like some kind of flying car. I actually rewound it to like try and get a closer look. But yeah, it was just, indistinct mass floating past. So I don't know if it's actually going to be, it looks old, but actually there's future technology, or if it's going to be in this like, place at the end of the universe, the second end of the universe beyond the cloud, where, things are degrading and there's, clumps of rock floating through the air and stuff like that. So yeah, we'll just wait and see on that one. But I'm looking forward to seeing what they actually do with it at the end now.
I mean, I am. I'm kind of sad that Richard E. Grant's Loki died. I liked him, and I have to admit as well, like there is a little bit of like tragedy, like that's actually eked out of it. There's probably more tragedy that you could eke out of it, but there's a lot of tragedy that is eked out of it just by watching it. Especially with his, because it's like, it's only when he actually decided to come back and see how everybody was doing that caused enough of a variance to, matter. That's kind of depressing, really. And then the fact that he recreated Asgard, with his magic, that's insane. That's insane. That was incredible. That was just. Plus, I really like that his last words were glorious purpose. That's a sort of, that, in a way, feels more like a full circle of Loki's character development than the Loki we're actually following.
I'm still not buying the character development of the Loki that we're following, because this is still the guy in between the Avengers and for Dark World. It's he saw that he was supposed to, his mother died and then he got killed, trying to be the hero and this and that, but he hasn't really lived it. So I can sort of see him like, maybe aspiring to that, but to be full on, I'm not that person anymore. Yeah, you are. Literally just a couple of days ago,
Yeah.
I'm not quite buying that, other than that they just want to skip all that and just, get friendly Loki back kind of thing,
Which makes no sense, because if they wanted to do that, then they didn't need to make it about the end game Loki, because they could have picked any Loki from any variant of time.
Well, yeah, instead of actually having him killed, it could have been, Thanos with the Infinity Stones, smashing him out of time, doing something like, there's any sort of way they could have done it. I've got no problem with the way they did it sort of as a general plot line, apart from this character development that he hasn't actually had, but we're supposed to buy that he is this person now. That's the only part that I'm really not buying about it. So, yeah, they could have. I think they could have dealt with that side of it a bit better. Like maybe adding, instead of just like watching the monitor, they've established that they have these time loop cells. They could have chucked him in one of those. He could have lived out his entire life from, the Avengers to Endgame. The whole sequence, it could have actually lived out on a loop. And then at the end of it, it could have come out of it. It's like, no, I really am fucking different now. I see, and then it's like, yeah, fine. I fucking buy that. We just watched,
especially since he does look older than he was.
Yeah, but I mean, we were talking about Doctor Who last week, and like Heaven Sent. It's like we've got a story there that shows how you can do that kind of time loop story and progress the character along. It's like, yeah, it might be a time loop, but all you need is that couple of seconds, couple of minutes at the end of realization. All the memories come flooding back, and it's like, oh, I've lived this before, and it's like, yeah, then it all kicks in. We've got a story there that shows how that sort of thing can be done. So imagine that Heaven Sent, but with Loki, and like tracking his story through the Avengers. I mean, like, that being, instead of him just like, watching a couple of clips on a video screen and go, oh, my mum's died, that's a bit sad. But then again, all parents die, I suppose. And then, and then I die, that's sad. Or then I suppose I'm bound to die at some point. It's, I don't really see the impetus for him to change, having just seen these little clips. It's like, oh, my dad was already dead because, I fucking killed him or caused his death. It's like, oh, but then he came back and then he died again. Oh, that's sad. But wait a minute, but I already killed him. But, oh, my head's messed up now. But, yeah, I think that, having established the time cells, I think that would have been, for me anyway, just if you've got that technology there, fucking use it. Don't just have like, the comedy Lady Sif kicking him in the nuts every 5 minutes.
Yeah, that was awful. But no, can I be honest? That really, really hacks me off. But that hacked me off because it's like, that was a character that was flat out ignored by Ragnarok. And, the entire supporting cast of Thor's movies was flat out ignored by Ragnarok. To the point where they killed off the Warriors 3 like that, which is just like, I'm sorry, these were his mates.
Yeah.
These were his best friends.
Yeah, it's like Lady Sif. Like Lady Sif, you go back to the original Thor, and and then pops up for a second in Dark World, and then other than that, she appeared in an episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and then appeared here. She just got totally reduced to like a bit character in the background, and it's like, well, shit, that's yeah. In fact, I remember actually news leaking that she was going to be back, and everyone's all excited about, I wonder what Lady Sif's going to be doing. Oh, I wonder what she's doing. It's like,
nothing.
Yeah, nothing. Just a stupid little time loop. Anyway, let's not dwell on that one, shall we?
No, but it's frustrating because you've got. It's frustrating for one thing because with all this talk of them, we're doing a Black Widow movie finally. Yeah. Cool. You can talk a big game about treating this female character really well by finally giving her a movie, and Scarlett Johansson complaining about how she was in Iron Man 2 or whatever, because they were over-sexualizing the character. Yeah, okay, fine. Talk about how you're improving your portrayal of female characters. Don't do that while continually underserving another one. You're not winning any brownie points, fellas.
Yeah, especially I was like, so you're finally doing it after how many films? How many years has she been being one of the main characters in the MCU? It's like finally doing it. We're supposed to be like, oh, well done. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we're so proud of you guys. You're doing it. After you killed her, we might add. So she's not doing anything else. This is like the last hurrah. Which
does sound like though the Phase 4 that they keep talking about is going to be a bit more balanced. Also, the anti-woke people are also like, oh, it's political.
See, I'm more interested. See, I'm. There are certain ones that I'm not looking forward to from that. But like for example, I have no desire whatsoever to see Lady Thor because I'm not particularly a fan of the Lady Thor concept. But I'm not a fan of the Lady Thor concept because it's like, I'm sorry, you're not making a strong original female character. You're piggybacking a female character off the back of a male character, hoping against hope that that character will be boosted by the impetus of that male character's popularity. All right.
It is. At the same time though, it was done in the comics, and the comics were really popular. So it's just following that. I mean, if it was done with like a different character, Lady Thor, I've got no problem with because they did it with the comics, and that was a popular comic character. If they did like right, let's get rid of Spider-Man and have Spider-Woman instead. There's like Spider-Woman in the comics. Have that one come across. But if they're actually replacing a character, the problem I've got with the whole Lady Thor concept, to be honest, is Thor Ragnarok. I didn't like it for a lot of things, but it actually showed that Thor, he is the lightning god. He's the god of thunder. He doesn't need his hammer. And then it's like in Endgame, like straight away, it's I need my hammer back. And now it's like, the hammer's going to get passed to someone else, and then she's going to become the goddess of thunder. And it's like, well, no, he's the god of thunder. It's in him. The hammer's just like a handy little thing that he throws around.
Yeah,
the power comes from him.
Yeah, he is very specifically not Thor, god of hammers. That was kind of the whole point of it. But, the thing is, though, I was never a fan of the Lady Thor concept. I've never read the comics, to be fair. So for all I know, they did it brilliantly. But, it strikes me as a bit off when you can do stuff like, really random example. A lot of people don't like the Avengers game. They think it's this awful cash grab piece of awfulness, which it is. But actually the story of that, following Miss Marvel around, Kamala Khan, Miss Marvel, with her, inhuman powers. Yeah, I like that character. That's an interesting character. That's a brilliant character. That is genuinely not very many people like that character, but I like that character. I really like that character. Okay. There's a couple of bits that are Mary Suey, I guess, if you want to get into it, but you've actually got a character there who is her own original character. Not bound up with like being a replacement legacy character for somebody else. Well, kind of a little, but the point is that she's, I don't know, it feels less like it's piggybacking on somebody else to try and push this character. It's one of the reasons I like Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman is not a character piggybacking on another character. Wonder Woman is a character who is a character, right? She is Wonder Woman. She's not Wonder Woman after Wonder Man. She's just Wonder Woman, and she's blooming amazing at that. And it's a blooming amazing character. And when done well, like especially in stuff like Zack Snyder's Justice League, amazing. Equally, there's characters that I don't like that are still, good for being their own character. Like, I don't like Captain Marvel in the MCU movies. I wasn't a fan of the movie particularly, and I'm not a fan of the character or the portrayal. But you know what? There is a character who is an original, female character who is not piggybacking on the success of, like, Captain Marvel, the guy. I mean, technically speaking, in the comics, kind of is a little. She's like the second one. The first one was Marvel, who was a dude in the comics. But in terms of the movies and stuff, like Captain Marvel is a woman and has been a woman since what, the 70s, the 60s in the comics. So that's like a proper established legacy. Whereas, it's like Lady Thor. It's like what's her name? Riri Williams, the little super intelligent, precocious girl Iron Man person. Stuff like that is a bit like, okay.
I think though that the other side of it to look at though is that the vast majority of these characters are male, and they have been male for decades. Since these comics and whatnot were all first created, they've been vast majority been men. So to keep telling these stories, we just keep seeing these male characters. Now you can create new characters, but then you're not showing these characters from the comics that fans love. So by making some of them now female characters, you're showing the characters that are known and loved, but you're just having a woman playing the part.
But you're not. No. Okay, the problem with that is, firstly, you're not showing the characters that people know and love. You're showing interpret.
No, let's be honest though. A lot of superhero stuff, nobody really gives a shit about the alter ego that's going to work in the daily planet. They want to see the superhero smashing stuff to bits and beating the bad guy. So you've got the character that has the powers, and you're just like, yeah. So this one's going to be the female person with the character rather than the male person with the character. Now, no, I know it's very reductive, but in order to not have another 10, 20 years of these characters where we're just like seeing these men on screen all the time, in order to get women in the screen, unless it's like, yeah, you can create new characters, but what connection have they got to the actual Marvel comic universe? So I can see it. I can understand that point of view, because it's like, yeah, we can just do it. We can just do that and create new characters, but they're not from Marvel. So it's like, if they're not from Marvel, it's not the Marvel Cinematic Universe. In 10, 20 years' time, it's going to be like half Marvel Cinematic Universe and half Disney Universe.
I mean, there are so many things that I could sort of poke in that argument.
I'm just saying I can understand the thinking behind continue the stories going.
No, but the problem is the thinking behind that. In terms of like the creatives, it's almost never, to continue the story, but also have women characters. The thinking behind it comes down to two completely different thought processes. All right, one of which is, let's just change it. Mainly just so that we can have the girl Thor or the girl Iron Man or whatever. Not particularly. That's the first thing they're thinking is, let's have the girl Thor, the girl Iron Man. All right. Or the thinking is some corporate executive bloke who's going, what's a really good marketing strategy we can do to sell comics? I know. Let's make a girl Thor. That's going to totally shock everybody, and we're going to sell loads of comics because everybody will want to come and look and see how badly we do or how great we do. And it doesn't matter.
Potentially, but the problem is we're not in the offices. We're not in the offices with them, so we'll never know the genuine motivation behind it. So we can speculate, and we can, paint them as total villains, and trying to cash in on whatever the zeitgeist is at the moment. But they could also be genuinely trying to what, we need to change things because we're really dick heavy in this fucking series of comic books we're doing. We need to change things going forward.
Okay, so I'm gonna bring out an example from comics that I thought worked really well by comparison. Okay. Which is when Bruce Wayne died in the comics a bit before the New 52. Okay? So when that happened, there were two different strands. The Batman comics were continued by Dick Grayson as Bruce Wayne. And this is where I feel like the argument about nobody cares who's under the cowl or whatever about the alter egos, it's not just reductive, it doesn't work, because there is a very clear distinction that people care about Bruce Wayne, people care about Dick Grayson, people care about Peter Parker, which is why the successful legacy character.
No. I'm not talking about people collecting comics week after week. I'm talking about the next big blockbuster Marvel film where they want to get asses on seats in the cinema. That's what I'm talking about here. Comics that can create new characters, because comics are going to be the Marvel comics. I'm talking about the films. Okay.
So that's... And another point that I probably should finish making my first point first. Okay.
But we're talking different points, that's all I'm saying.
Okay, well, the point that you made about the Marvel films is also kind of not actually what I was saying, because there are enough female superheroes for them to make movies about that they don't have to make up new ones from whole cloth. They can just tell stories about female superheroes. You know, they can tell stories about a million different female superheroes that are, in fact, Marvel superheroes, most of whom aren't, you know, piggybacking on the success of a male character.
Most of whom also are not in the top selling 5 comic books, you know. They're picking from like the most popular ones.
Yeah, but at the same time, Guardians of the Galaxy wasn't in the top 5 selling comic books.
Yeah, nobody expected it to do really well. It's like, well, you can do it, but it's got to be under this budget to get it done and so on. You know, it was done because like James Gunn had a reputation for doing the comedy scripts and all that kind of thing. It was like, yeah, this could be, you know, a fun thing that we can do, which can, like, you know, expand into other things out in space. And nobody expected it to quite as well as it actually did do.
Which I suppose...
And also it's an ensemble piece, you know, you've got different characters in. It's not just like, let's put all this money on this one character.
Which I suppose sort of brings us to the big problem we keep talking about with Hollywood, which is it would be a massive risk to tell a story about one of these previously unthingied female superheroes that they've got in their back catalogue. It would probably be a big risk. All right. And Hollywood doesn't take enough risks.
I mean, this is why I loved the first series of Jessica Jones, is they took one of the lesser known female characters and they actually made her real. You know, it's like one of the things I really hated about like the second and third series of Jessica Jones as well is like the first series, you know, she's like a victim of like, you know, abuse. You know, she's like raped and abused and like forced to do things she didn't want to do. And, you know, as a reaction to that, she like got PTSD and she's like, you know, turns to drink to try and, you know, self-medicate because, you know, she's superpowered, so normal medicines probably don't work anyway. But, you know, it's like she's a broken person and that's why she's drinking. It's a symptom of what's happened to her. And then, like, you know, the second and third season, it's just become like a character joke. And, you know, especially in the Defenders, actually, you know, make jokes about, you know, she like sits down on this in the subway and, you know, like nicks some lager off of a tramp who's asleep. And, you know, they're staring at her. She's like, well, and it's just like, yeah, no, you've gone so far from the very real character who's like broken. And, you know, it was a fucking beautiful story. I love that story because it was also, why are we telling these superhero stories? Like, yeah, you can just, like I said before, have like, you know, the villain comes down and you just want to see superheroes smash and beat them up. Whereas this one's like, no, you can't just do that because if she gets close to him, he'll say something and she won't be able to beat him up. So it's like, right, you've got to be, you know, and it's also like, if you're invulnerable, how do you get hurt? So it's like they keep coming up with like more and more like powerful villains, you know, physically powerful villains to beat up the bad guy. And then in like Jessica Jones, you've got like, right, no, she can't beat him up because she can't get close to him, and he can't physically beat her up because she's invulnerable. However, it's all psychological, and you know, and that's why it's so powerful and such a great story. And you know, and they never came anywhere close to it with like the second and third seasons. But that is a good example of taking a character that's lesser known and making something amazing from it. So yeah, I mean, I'm completely behind it. I'm not saying it won't work, but what I'm saying is that, you know,
they won't.
The producers in the studios are thinking like, no, these are the top sellers, but we don't want it to be just men going forward. We need to have women in, apart from anything else, to get all them pesky skirts off us backs. So then, you know, right, so right, let's make 4 women. That was in the comics, right? Okay, we can do that then. Who else can we turn into a woman? And yeah, who knows the actual motivation behind it? It might be money driven, it might be whatever, but they're definitely not going to take risks on one of the major films on a lesser character from the comics. So, but I wish they would, because, you know, Jessica Jones, if that had been a film, that would have been amazing.
I mean, there were so many amazing female characters, like even in the ensembles, like, you know, a really well done Fantastic Four movie would be great. You know, a new X-Men movie with a new X-Men cast, you know, that would be incredible to see, I think, you know.
I mean, X-Men could really, they've got like so many characters in there that, and obviously they're going to like play with, right, who are going to be the original ones and who are going to be like the younger, you know, the kids coming up and stuff like that. I mean, like Rogue, she wasn't really one of the kids in the comics. And then, like, you know, when they had the film back in 2000, it's like suddenly she's a child to, like, you know, the adult, you know, it's like, no, they're contemporaries. What? You know, that really confused me, like making her a child. But, okay, it's now established in the films that they can make them, you know, change the ages and have like this one a kid and that one a grown up or whatever. So if they're going to do that kind of thing, then, okay, whoever's a child in the comics can now be an adult. So instead of being like a bunch of like, you know, predominantly male-led team, actually you can have a lot more of the female characters, like, you know, this powered person and that powered person. They would be perfect in a leadership role. It's like, yeah, they're both women as well, which is great. That's going to really fit the whole, you know, the push to get more women on the screen and in the cinemas kind of thing. So yeah, I think X-Men done well could be a good thing. But to be honest, I think it went downhill pretty quick during the original trilogy of the X-Men films, to be honest. Well, in fact, in the first X-Men film, the first one was great until, like, you know, the sort of like the last actors like they're coming towards the Statue of Liberty and stuff, and then it was one of those like, yeah, right, let's quickly wrap it up because it's going to be 2 hours long already kind of thing, and which is a shame because I really did like that film, apart from the ending, which I think I felt a bit rushed. But then the sequels felt a bit more sequely rather than actually let's continue a story or tell a story. It's like, right, what did we like from that? Right, let's make Logan the star now, and let's just, that's it for now. Which is a shame. I mean, I love Wolverine, but
that bugged me about the X-Men movies, to be fair, that it basically became the Wolverine show, because it's like the thing that really hacked me off is I like Cyclops. Cyclops is one of my favorite X-Men. You know, he's a bit of a, unfortunately, I don't want to swear. I'm not allowed to swear anymore. My wife has told me I'm not allowed to swear. He's a bit of a, you know, in the comics, but generally speaking, he's one of my favorites. And he got kind of done in a bit by the second and certainly by the third movie. That was like, oh yeah, let's just kill him off.
Yeah, I mean,
in 2 minutes flat.
In like the first film, you've got, you know, like Logan trying it on with Jean. It's like, hey, Jean's like, no, it's not going to happen ever. And, you know, by the time the third one, it's like, you know, it's like a proper love triangle, and it's like, fuck off, Cyclops. They're still getting together now. It's like, what? That really, yeah. I had big problems with that at the time. But, you know, that was like, you know, 15 years ago now, so I've got over it a bit by not watching it again.
And then all the rest of them, of course. Like, the Wolverine wasn't terrible, but it was a bit, okay, fair enough. It's a bit weird.
I mean, yeah. I don't know. I mean, like the X-Men ones in general, it's like, I can't believe we've got this amazing, like, you know, range of characters to pull from, and yet nobody has got any ideas of what to do with them. It seems like, you know,
other than Wolverine kill things.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Yeah, let's move on from the X-Men, shall we?
I mean, if you insist, we can keep talking about it all night if you want.
How do we get onto all that anyway? It was expanded out of Loki, wasn't it? So,
yeah, I mean, to be honest, I actually really like the female Loki character. I think, you know, there's certainly, it's an interesting twist on the character. You know, I think, you know, the whole thing is sort of underserved a bit. The whole characters are underserved a bit by like the nature of it.
Yeah.
But generally, I think really good performance. Like genuinely good character. Yeah, I don't like. I have no idea if they're trying to go for a romance with it, and I hope to God they're not, because that's just like.
Well, that was the whole thing with that was the whole thing with the variance being caused on Lamentis or whatever it's called. So, yeah, it kind of looks like they are.
Okay. You know how we were talking about Cruella and the fact that Pongo and Perdita are doing incest? Loki's doing incest. Disney supports incest. We're not putting that as the blue header for this episode, but that would be. Oh God, I'm not going to choke myself laughing on this, I swear. But oh my God, why? Why?
It is a weird thing where exactly would that fall? Because they're kind of the same person, but not the same person. So does that make them brother and sister? But yeah, could probably mess your head up if you try to think about it too hard.
Just a tad, yeah. But God. So yeah, moving on from Loki. What else have we been watching this week? Because I have not been watching much, to be honest.
Well, I watched what was it? A film on Netflix. Okay, so there's a film called Ophelia on Netflix, and starring Daisy Ridley, and yes, it's based on Ophelia from Hamlet. It's a retelling of it from Hamlet's point of view, in the same way that like Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead. So like, you know, a version of Hamlet told from Rosencrantz and Guildenstern's point of view. This was supposedly, anyway, a retelling from Ophelia's point of view. Now, the reason I watched it is because I was flicking through the Netflix, what to watch. Now, Mrs. Treasure, she really loves like period stuff. So anything where there's like, you know, people in costumes and stuff like that, she's always like, oh, what's that? Can we watch it? Then I saw it was like Ophelia, and I thought, oh, well, I'm familiar with Hamlet. I'll give that a watch. Yeah, I'll see what it's like then. See what interesting take they've got in it. But so it's just coming off that conversation of like, the woke patrol, you know, like the people are ranting against it. It's one of those films that really would get those people's wound up if they were familiar with Shakespeare, especially because it's like in Shakespeare, in the Hamlet, Ophelia is like a very sort of tragic character. You know, she's like, you know, loses a family and goes mad basically. Whereas in this one, it's like she's presented very much as a hero, and it's like even as a child, like, you know, she was like, no girls are allowed in the library, but you know, she learned to read with the help of her brother. You know, all about, you know, because she's so, you know, driven herself and so on and so forth. And it's all very, the characters are all very modern characters who just happen to live in this world where you're not supposed to do this and not supposed to do that. And, you know, she's like reading from a rude book and she's like, oh, that's rude, because, you know, a character would be a bit like that. But at the same time, like none of the other attitudes in the film are like kind of that kind of the time period kind of thing. And the actual works of Shakespeare are like barely to be seen in it as well. It's like so skirted over. It's, you know, Hamlet appears, who is very, very not like Hamlet. You know, it's like some of the scenes are sort of like touched on, and some of the, you know, there's a few lines there from the actual lines of dialogue, but they're very much, it's like they're basically saying like, oh, you know that Hamlet? Oh yeah, that's what somebody wrote, it's like based on what happened, but this is what really happened. So it's sort of like, who the fuck are you to, like, you know, try and rewrite Shakespeare? You know, it's like, you know, because they actually at the end of it, you know, she doesn't die as she should. It's like at the end of it, it's all like a fake death. She, you know, she learned this because she's so clever. You see, she pretended to be insane as a ruse to escape imprisonment, and then, you know, she like, because she's so clever, she actually took some poison that like slowed her heart down enough that she appeared to be dead, but she's not dead. And so then she was able to escape at the end, and you know, and her and Hamlet have made love, so she's pregnant with Hamlet's child at the end as well. So then it like skips forward, and the child is, you know, like 6 years old or whatever, and she's saying like, oh yeah, so you might have thought you've heard my story before, but you haven't really. This is my story. And it's like, what the fuck? Who the fuck are you? Just, oh my god. But yeah, but if like, you know, but if you are of the woke patrol, if you have that crowd, then, you know, the fact that they dared to have a racially diverse cast as well. Can you believe it? Oh my god. So yeah, you've got people who are like actual people of color in the court of Hamlet. Can you imagine such a thing? Actors of color. So yeah, it's one of those things. While I was watching it, I was just like thinking like, oh my god, if all the internet saw this, they'd fucking explode, man. But yeah, that side of it apart though is like, I was like thinking like, who the fuck like takes Shakespeare and thinks, you know, I'm going to rewrite this. And it's like, it's okay to like put something that's set in it, which is why I was up for watching, like, you know, let's see Ophelia's story. Like, Ophelia's story would have been really compelling if like done like actually following Ophelia's story and like her falling to insanity and all this. It'd be a tragic tale, a very tragic tale, but it would be a very compelling story to watch. And instead they just go, nah, let's throw that out and let's just do our own thing instead. And it's like, whenever so often we'll show you a bit of Hamlet and stuff just to, you know, try and put it together. So, you know, so like, you know, the tragic ending of Hamlet, you know, where they all kill each other by accident kind of thing. It's like, well, they kind of do that, but then the Norwegians storm in and kill everybody else who's alive as well. So the Norwegians take over Denmark. What? Yeah, it's a very odd film. So yeah, so we went into it because, as I said, Mrs. Treasure likes the period dramas, and I thought, oh yeah, I'm interested in. I know I like a bit of Shakespeare. I'll watch a bit of a Hamlet story. Why not? And yeah, it's an odd one. It's a very odd one, especially if you are familiar with Hamlet. Then you'll be like, what? So yeah,
I'm just pulling a face because first off, you do not even draw comparisons between what you just described and Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead, because Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead is one of the best absurdist plays I have ever read. It is beautiful. It is stunning. And the fact that it has almost nothing to do with Shakespeare, it's got the text, but the fact that they don't know what the hell they're saying, they don't understand what they're saying, they don't understand their part in this. What is going on?
Rosencrantz and Guildenstern actually tracks with the play. You know, this doesn't. It kind of tries to here and there, but then it shows it blatantly has got a complete disregard to the play. Whereas Rosencrantz and Guildenstern was trying to fit into it and was embracing the play. This is like saying that it's this annoying thing that we have to kind of fit around and, you know, squeeze scenes in. But yeah, it isn't a very odd one. But yeah, no, it's definitely not in the category of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead, which is an absolute fucking classic. And I would recommend anybody go and watch that.
I think it's on YouTube if you don't want to pay money for it, but
probably. Yeah, you can probably get it somewhere. I think a film like that, would that be one that... See, Amazon, I can't figure out Amazon pricings. It's like some films you'd think, oh, well, they're going to charge you for that one because that's going to be a big blockbuster and going to be a big money earner for them. And it's like, no, you can have that one for free. And then there's other ones that you think like, well, that's an old one. They won't charge people for that. And it's like £5. And you're like, what? So yeah, I can't figure out their pricing system. But yeah, it
No.
wouldn't surprise me. That's it. Yeah, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern on Amazon Prime. If you've got a subscription, it's either going to be free or it's going to be £10. It's going to be one or the other.
I'm going to look it up right now. I'm going to literally go on my little Prime app and I'm going to look up Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead because I'm that kind of sad. But so Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead. Okay, so there's a 2019 version.
Oh yeah, I think I heard about that. Never watched it. Yeah, we're talking about the old one. Was it like the 80s? Was it or 90s?
Yeah, there's also Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Undead, which the video is unavailable. So why is it listed? I
think I've heard about that actually. Yeah, you just rung a bell with that one.
What the heck is that? Explain! Explain! Well, you can't explain because you don't know anything about it.
No.
Okay.
But yeah, the old one, we're talking about the one with Tim Roth and Gary Oldman.
Oh, that.
And also, what's his face from Game of Thrones in it as well.
Oh God, yeah. No, just
looking very, very young. Well, even looking very young, but yeah, the guy whose name, oh shit, right, it's established doing these podcasts. I've got a really terrible memory, especially for names. So the guy from Game of Thrones, whose name I can't remember.
Ian Glenn or something.
Yes, that's the one. Yeah. So I only discovered him as an actor in Game of Thrones. Since then, I've seen a couple of other things. I'm like, oh yeah, he's in that as well and that as well. But he's always been like an older guy. So then seeing him in Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead, where he's playing Hamlet, like 20 years old or whatever, and he's so fucking young. It really is. Yeah, I'd recommend going back to watch that just to see how young. Yeah, because of all the costumes and stuff like that, he actually looks like it could be a young version of the guy from Game of Thrones as well, in some respects. But yeah, I think I've said but yeah enough as well. But yeah. So,
yeah, but no, but yeah, but no, but yeah, but no, but. All right, Matt Lucas.
You stole it from me.
I mean, it's interesting. It's interesting, to sort of bring up the complaints of the woke crowd, because there was the recent Anne Boleyn thing, which sort of brought that stuff up as well. I'm half and half on that. But basically, no. The reason I'm half and half on that is, on the one hand, you've got, and forgive me for generalizing, this is a massive overgeneralization. On the one hand, you've got a bunch of white people going, oh, isn't it great that we can, colorblind cast this character? And on the other hand, I've seen an awful lot of black people going, we don't want stories about Anne Boleyn, but with a black woman playing her. We want stories about actual black historical figures. So me sitting here as a white person, I'm just thinking, okay, on the one hand, I don't want to tell a black person that they can't play a role because historically she wasn't black, because I don't even know what she was historically. She's been dead for longer than like proper decent recorded history. God only knows what she actually looked like. So I don't want to tell people that a black person can't do this, that, or whatever. But at the same time, I don't want to disregard all these black people saying, no, we don't want this. This is precisely what we don't want. Please don't do this. Give us stories about actual black historical figures. And it's the same actually with stuff like on Twitter. A lot of black people I see on Twitter are like, we don't want a black Superman. Or if we do, we want the actual black Superman from the comics, and not Kal-El, but black. Yeah. And I'm just sitting here I feel very confused about what I'm supposed to be thinking right now.
The thing is, it's for all the people, for all the black people who welcome it, there are going to be some people who are not welcoming to it, or who say, yeah, sure, but that's not what we're after. We're wanting stories about black characters, because it's also because you've got to remember, so many people who are of African heritage, they didn't come straight over from Africa in recent years. They were dragged kicking and screaming or in chains, many years ago. So the reason they'd like to have people characters of black history is because they don't really know their history, because it was all
taken from them,
thrown overboard, basically. Literally. So yeah, I can understand that, but I think the point of okay, if it's a hard historical drama, then I think it should be cast correctly to the the ethnicity of the character. But something where it's more of a popcorn drama, and it's I'm not saying Anne Boleyn specifically because I've not seen it. I don't know what the tone of that show is, but something like what was that, Bridgerton, that came out recently as well? I mean, that was it's more like a romantic period piece where the ethnicity of the characters didn't really matter, and it's not really done as a historical thing. I don't even know if it's set on an actual piece of history, or if it's completely made up. But the point of like having something that's set like that, where it could be a romantic comedy or whatever, where it's not a hard historical drama, it's just a drama and anybody can apply for the parts, anybody can audition. I'm completely supportive of that. But yeah, when it comes to like a hard drama about actual historical characters, maybe you should stick to them. But Anne Boleyn, I don't know that particular show.
I don't know it particularly. And the thing is, I generally, one, I don't really watch historical dramas anyway, so I wasn't invested enough to care. Two, if I had a problem with, I think the term is blackwashing of historical characters, I don't have enough of a problem with it that I would say this is a problem with society or this is a problem with television and it needs to stop. I would just be like, don't personally like it. I'm not going to watch it. Good for them. They can do that. I'm not going to stop them from doing that. If I had a problem with blackwashing, is that the term? I think that's the term people sometimes use.
I think that's what I've seen some people throw that around them.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen, I wouldn't feel comfortable using it if I hadn't seen, black people using it on Twitter to describe stuff like casting Kal-El, but as a black guy, for example. So, but, it's a complex issue and it's sort of, I'm hopefully not going to get too political here, but there's this common thing that I see quite a lot of people, lumping all one minority's voices as one collective voice that all says the same thing, when actually the breadth of black people is a very like massively diverse breadth of opinions on how black people should be represented in the media. And the thing that sort of sticks in my craw a little bit about it is all these, if I must say it, these old white guys, mostly in television and producers and stuff, or white women saying, oh yeah, aren't we so diverse for doing this? And that sort of sticks in my core. And it's a bit like, are you? How many black people have you actually spoken to about this? Have you really thoroughly done your research about whether this is something that, the people that you're trying to represent want? I think it's very easy to think that you're doing something great on the race relations thing, and it's a lot harder to actually do something great on it.
Tell you a black historical story I would like to see, based purely on a statue that I saw. I don't know anything about this at all, other than a statue and a brief description of the statue. So, saw a statue. It's an old statue. It's all like monochrome, dark coloured. So it's not actually coloured or anything like that. So it's only when you look at the features of the guy's face, you can tell he's got African features, he's got a broader nose and so on. So yeah, it's an African guy. So why is he dressed as a samurai? And then the actual thing of the story is the guy, it's a while ago, and as I've just said a little bit earlier, shit memory, especially for names. But so it was a guy who was an African slave, went to Japan. Oh, I could be completely stepping on people's feet here. He either went to Japan or China and became either a samurai or a ninja. I think it was a samurai, but it was, and I'm quite sure he became the first black samurai basically. And so this statue is of him in the full samurai gear. So yeah, that makes sense. Because if it was a ninja, it would have been all
I think ninjas are actually Japanese as well, dude.
I thought ninjas are Chinese.
No, okay. So ninjas, I think, ninjas as pop culture understands them, all these hooded dudes and stuff, that doesn't exist. Ninjas are just like an assassin class. But so in Japanese society, and bear in mind, I might be getting all this wrong, but this is based on stuff that I've actually watched. So people who actually know stuff about Japan, please feel free to tell me I'm wrong. Yeah. But samurai are up here. They're like top dudes, proper the knights in all the ways. They proper nobility, which is one of the reasons that they fought so hard, when the samurai class was being disbanded by the Reformation stuff, which is what The Last Samurai was about. But ninjas are low class, they're really low class people. It's one of the reasons you can get them to do assassin work, because that's low class. But they're both Japanese things. But no, yeah, I think I have heard of the Black Samurai, to be fair.
But yeah.
And yeah, okay, so stuff like that, I would absolutely love to see more stuff like that. You know what else, though? Really randomly, one example of, historical, that I applauded was, there was an episode of Doctor Who in Series 10 where there were, Roman legionnaires, and there were a few black people among them. Yeah. And that made perfect. You know why I liked that, though? Because that's how the Romans worked. You got conquered, you were going to be an auxiliary for a while, but after a while, you're all just Romans. So you're all equally Roman within Rome, basically. And I really like that. And, it'd be really great to just see more films set in stuff like ancient Rome, seeing see a nice diverse cast of dudes all off to get horribly murdered in a pointless war. Why not? That would be interesting if you're going to talk about stuff like that, you know. Or I'm sure there's like a metric ton of like really interesting films, you know, that you could still like. For example, I'd love to see movies about the Zulu War, like remaking Zulu and Zulu Dawn. All right, but now have more time spent with the actual Zulu characters.
Yeah, maybe not just like a bunch of white dudes shooting black people.
Well, let's be fair. My understanding is that the actual grandson of the Zulu's king was part of that making of Zulu and actually really respected it. He really respected it because he liked the fact that the Zulus in that were portrayed as, yeah, these guys are amazing. These guys are like scary good at what they do, you know. So he liked it. So I am hesitant to dismiss that movie as a bunch of white dudes, you know, shooting black people, precisely because a person who would actually have more stake in getting beat up about it than I would.
However, he's respecting from the point of view of, you got the shields right and stuff, and that's how we do the battle cry or whatever, and they're fighting in the correct way, sort of thing. He's not thinking of it from like the wider political view of like, wait a minute, how come none of our guys have actually got any dialogue or character development, anything like that? We are just those crazy, scary others that are coming in to attack the.
And to be fair, this is why I would.
By the way, in the 80s when I grew up, that was on the telly quite a lot, and my brother and really enjoyed it. So I was like forced to sit through that film many a time. So, but yeah,
I think that would be a movie to remake and actually have like, you know, tell that story again, tell it from both sides of that, you know, tell it like an honest, sympathetic portrayal of both sides. Because at the end of the day, like the thing that I find most interesting about it is, you know, Rorke's drift wasn't meant to happen. Like my understanding of it is basically whoever the Zulu general was, he was breaking orders. He was disobeying orders because the order was, all right, win this battle, drive him out of our territory, but then stop, because the job is kick him out of our territory and demonstrate that we can win a battle so that we can actually sit around the table and be like, yeah, see, we beat you. Now, can you have a deal with us that's a bit more respectful, like? And instead, that guy decided to go to Rorke's Drift and lose quite terribly, because why wouldn't you? So, and but you know that would be interesting. Like you've got this almost Game of Thronesian-esque stuff that you could play around with the Zulu characters, and then you've obviously got the I guess there's a certain boots on the ground heroism of the poor sods in red coats, which I always quite liked.
Oh, there is,
you know. So like again, telling that kind of story again. I feel like something like that would be interesting.
Yeah, something like could be. It's not sure, you know, let's not dwell too much on the history of it, but, you know, it's like, there's a reason they were over there that's perhaps, you know, like takes away from them being heroes kind of thing, you know, in general, the British Empire and all the rest of it, you know.
Okay. So that's an interesting point. And again, not to dwell on it, but I would argue that it takes away from the people who sent them there being heroes. It doesn't take away from the men themselves being brave.
Maybe not as individuals, but, you know, as a group of heroes that we're perhaps supposed to be getting behind, it's sort of like, but that's a whole different conversation though.
Yeah, but then again, you might as well say that about every single movie set in any time prior to our own, because pretty much everybody was horrible. Like literally every single movie set in a time prior to our own.
No, what I'm saying is making
horrible.
a film that's glorifying the British Empire of old who went across doing empire shit. That's what I'm saying is like, you know, maybe should avoid, but that's again the topic I don't want to dwell on and go down that rabbit hole of discussing kind of thing. It's yes, it could be made into a good film. It's just you'd have to be careful how you told it. That's all. You know, 'cause, I mean, we've got the football on at the moment, and just the fact that I don't watch football is enough for people to say you don't support your country, and it's like, you know, you'd get that mentality of sort of like, yeah, go and fucking show them, and it's like
yes, because it's totally about whether you support your country, whether you don't like football. I'm not particularly enamored of a bunch of overpaid idiots kicking an expensive leather ball around a muddy field. That's not how.
If it's all about supporting your country, where were they all during the chess tournaments? Why weren't the pubs full then? Come on, use a rook.
You know, this is it. You know, I try my very best not to judge people based on stuff that they like, and I try my very best not to consider liking stuff to be silly, because I'm a geek. That's kind of hypocritical of me. but I have spent my entire life getting treated like absolute dog poo for being a geek. Like, I have spent my life being treated like absolute dog poo for being a geek. Whereas, you know, there is literally no difference between me being a geek and collecting all the geeky stuff that I collect and them collecting all this football paraphernalia. The only difference is, you know, one of them is some athletic thing where a bunch of highly paid idiots do it. And one is...
my dad, he was a professional rugby player back in the old days when you used to get paid £3 a game or £6 if you won. You know, it's like back in the day. I mean, rugby players aren't paid like football players are paid. But, you know, they're paid a lot better than they used to be, which, as I say, £3 or £6 if you won. But, yeah, I used to get taken on to the matches with the family. So the match, you know, people would go through to watch the match. And they'd all be out in the stadium, you know, watching the match. And I'd be in the VIP lounge. Apparently, I used to get them to put Batman on the TV for me. So I'd be watching like the old Adam West Batman TV show as a kid in the VIP lounge while my dad
So while your dad was out there getting real life wham, pow, couple of splat, you were watching Adam West fake bam, pow.
Yeah, I was like, whatever, yeah, you go throw your ball about. I'm going to watch this. Yay!
Damn straight, sir.
So moving on from the Empire to the other Empire, Star Wars. Have you been watching the Bad Batch?
I mean, a bit. I don't recall. Okay, the last episode wasn't really impressive, but that's because there's so much that you could do with the idea of, oh yeah, we're helping separatists, and they just kind of didn't. Like they really didn't, and it's like, okay, fine, I get it. It's a kids program. You don't really want to get too much into, you know, millions of my brothers were created for the sole purpose of fighting and killing you. You did this, and in a way you helped this happen. Well, you're clone troopers, and up there are clone troopers oppressing my people. So much they could play around with that, and instead it just devolves into, yet another shooty match. And the only thing that I can probably say I really liked about it was the fact that they were using stun on the clones. And that's the only thing I can say I liked. But it's really... Stun. They were using the stun blasts on the clones, but even that's really inconsistent in this series. Like, sometimes they'll use stun blasts and sometimes they won't, and it's like, I'm sorry, make up your mind. Do you care about these people's lives or don't you? Do you care about your brothers or don't you? You don't act like you care about them. So, and this is a problem I kind of have. This is actually a problem I'm increasingly kind of having with the Bad Batch, which is, I'm sorry, I'm getting binged. Nothing particularly important. They're selfish. They're really selfish people. They've been told there is a war out there to stop the Empire. They know the Empire is bad. They know the Empire has enslaved their brothers, all of their brothers, including Crosshair, who is probably the only one of their brothers that they care about because they have this problem with the regs. But, like, you know, they know that this big horrible thing is happening, and they're just content to go around doing random bounty hunter jobs. And it's sort of reminding me, on a really random tangent, one of the reasons I don't like, not The Mandalorian, but Mandalorians as a culture, like people who glorify characters like Boba Fett or other Mandalorians, when actually they're selfish, petty people. And they're not people that, you can follow them for like one short story or a couple of short stories where you're just seeing them do cool things. But as characters that you want to root for, as characters that you want to succeed long term, you don't want to do that because they're not good people and they don't want particularly good things. You know, at best, they want mediocre things or amoral things. You know, at worst, they want actively bad things.
I mean, the problem with the Mandalorians is that so many people have written them over the years and they've changed over the years as well. And it's like, you know, as an old school fan of Boba Fett, it wasn't because, he's a Mandalorian and stuff. Nobody even knew the word Mandalorian back in the day. You know, that was made up like years later. But the reason he was cool, like back in the day, he was jetpack guy. You know, he had a jetpack, he had the gun and stuff like that. He was like this cool guy. You know, you send him out to bring the guy and he'd bring him back, and, you know, because he's a cool jetpack guy. And that's what my love of the Mandalorian. It's like, it's the armor, and like, you know, earlier on talking about Zack Snyder like telling a story of, like, you know, on the, you know, the little bits that's here and there. It's like on the Mandalorian armor that we saw with the original Boba Fett costume. It's like, well, what those, you know, you look at the expanded, you know, the costumes and the character books and all those kinds of things back in the day, and you see, like, you know, rocket launchers on his knees. What the, you know, and it's all that kind of thing that, like, you know, you find interesting. Like, oh wow, this guy's really cool. There's a lot more in there than you'd think. And then, like, you know, other people then start writing the stories, and it's like, okay, so I'd made up my own stories based on all this, like, you know, information on, like, oh, this is, like, you know, supposed to be this and this is supposed to be that, and it's like, oh wow, that's cool. But then other people start writing stories, and then they start building it, and other people write stories built on what went on that. And then they decided to throw out all the old EU stuff, but now they're like bringing it slowly back in. And it's like, well, it's all completely messed up now. And it's a big jumble. So it's just like, at the moment, officially speaking, it's just this weird, they have like this honor system, unless they're this other tribe of Mandalorians who don't have the honor system. It's like, well, what's going on? So yeah, it's...
I mean, my problem, to sort of bring it back a little bit to the Bad Batch, my problem with them is that, again, they're just selfish. They don't seem to care about the wider conflict. You know, they're not. Maybe that'll change. Maybe they will get drawn back into the wider conflict as this series progresses, in which case, okay, that's a character development, that's a character arc. I like that. But so far, not. And that's what I have to build on, is so far what we've had. And so far, like, the only reason they took the chips out of their heads was because Rex told them that they ought to. You know, they didn't care enough to go out and help Rex try and free the others, which is what we presume Rex is going out there to do. You know, and it's like, you know, it keeps coming back to that fact of, yeah, these were people, all of them, you know, people that we grew to love over 7 seasons. And at the end of season 7, we had the big tragedy of, oh no, all of these clones that we've grown to love are dead now. Look at this sad montage of their helmets, and now they're just a bunch of blank, faceless helmets that we don't have to care about, and it's disgusting. No, I'm sorry, that's a very harsh word to use, disgusting, but actually, yeah, it is morally repugnant. It is morally repugnant, you know, to be unpersoning these people. You know, to be unpersoning these characters just so you can feel okay when they get gunned down. Like, I don't know, maybe other Star Wars fans feel the same as I do. You know, seeing all these, you know, regular clones getting gunned down and horribly murdered is as affecting to them. And we're all, you know, they're all secretly going, no! Maybe that's what Dave Filoni wants you to be doing. Maybe that's going to be the secret point of the whole darn series, is that, you know, we're going to go out there and try and fix the clones. But
yeah, I mean, that's been my issue with it to start with, and that's also been the part of the on board of the Dave Filoni Star Wars, which is okay, we're following this group of good guys, which means anybody who opposes them is a bad guy, so it's all right to just outright murder them to get past. Which is, like you were saying earlier, it's good to see them actually using the stun settings on things, you know, because it's like, yeah, in general, just resorting to pew, pew, pew and look how many bodies are left behind. That's not really fulfilling storytelling for me, you know. It's, as a spectacle in film on, like, you know, big grand scale, yeah, maybe, but just like every episode, pew pew pew, killed a bunch of people again, and oh look, and Omega's turned out to be another child genius again. It's like, well, who saw that coming in episode 1 when she was introduced? Not me, honest. It's so predictable.
I didn't mind it, but you're right, it is predictable, and like the tropes in general are kind of quite tired. You know, like science fiction and fantasy is full of these child prodigy characters that are just vaguely irritating, really. You know, and not because they're child prodigies, but because there's so blasted many of them.
Yeah, but it's like, you know, at least make it about her being a child prodigy. I mean, how fucking stupid are the Bad Batch that they've not realised she's a fucking child prodigy yet? And they're still just like, no, you sorry, just treat her like a little kid. It's like, you know, it really is like, you know, grates me that, like, you know, the people in the universe are supposed to be not realising that she's a child prodigy. And, like, you know, us the viewers, it's like, you know, is it because it's aimed at kids and they think like, oh, kids are stupid, so they'll think that they're really clever because they figured it out? Is that what the thinking behind it is? Because there's no reason for them as grown men who've, you know, worked with Jedi and stuff, and you've seen all kinds of crazy shit through the wars and all the rest of it, that they wouldn't recognise, like, oh, wait a minute, she's smarter than your average kid. What's going on here?
Especially when they've seen Jedi children fight, right? And especially, let's not beat around the bush here. We know what clone soldiers and clone soldiers are like when they're that age. We know that clone kids are very competent, you know, and they have to be. So it should not be beyond these guys' like level of recognition to understand that, yeah, actually this kid can be that competent. But, you know, it's a kid's show. Let's not give a heck. Hecking heck. I don't know. I just... Yeah.
Yeah, it's not really grabbing me. I keep watching it because, you know, it's Star Wars and it's not quite down at the kids level where I, you know, lose interest. That other one they did, not Rebels, they did the other one with Poe Dameron in, I can't remember what that one was.
Resistance,
yeah. We sort of tried watching that, but first episode it's like, no, this one's clearly made for, like, you know, a much younger age range kind of thing. So I couldn't really get into that. So yeah, it's not quite down that low, but it's not really grabbing my interest. I'm also watching it for, feeding the Star Wars lore kind of thing, just keeping that world alive, as it were. But I'm certainly not watching it for the stories.
I mean, one problem I kind of have with it is it can't decide what it wants to be. Does it want to just be pew pew action adventure, or does it want to have, like, I quite like the bit where we meet this first batch of Imperial Stormtrooper recruits, these regular people. And I liked hearing their reasons for joining the Empire. The Empire gave me a food and a bed and all that stuff. That's more than the Republic ever did. You know what? Like, yeah, let's actually explore the reasons why people choose to support the Empire, because God knows there's got to be reasons beyond we're evil and we like blowing up planets.
Well, this is it. This is why, like, you have characters like that, and then you have like characters in the you have Finn and the other deserters. It's like, okay, so we're showing that these stormtroopers are actually people under the helmets, and especially in the sequel trilogy, they were like apparently kidnapped as children as well. It's not like they're joined up willingly, free will. It's like, no, they were kidnapped as children or something. It's never fully explained, is it? But you have these characters where you do show them as actual real people, and yet they're still just cannon fodder, and it's fine to just shoot them and blow them up and whatnot. It's like, so you can say that, but the Empire, they're like blowing up all the rebels as well. It's like, yeah, because the Empire are fucking baddies. They're supposed to be depicted in this evil way where they've got dismissing human life and just killing everybody. They don't give a shit. But it's like, yeah, I mean, it's Star Wars. In war, yeah, you got to fight each other. But my point is, when it comes to a one-to-one level, when they've just got to get past a bunch of stormtroopers and it just gets results, let's just blow them all up or shoot them all. It's like, there are other ways to get around these obstacles.
I mean, the thing is, like, in the original trilogy, it was very, I think it would be fair to say the original trilogy was very two-dimensional in its treatment of the bad guys, except for Darth Vader. So it's fair to have that two-dimensionality to that, because you haven't opened up the can of worms. The prequel trilogy, and I love the fact that the prequel trilogy, has a bit more complexity, but at the end of the day, the prequel trilogy is bad guys and good guys, and it's quite clear defined, and you're not really meant to feel too sympathetic to the bad guys, and kind of the only times you are is when the bad guys are getting killed by other bad guys, like, the Trade Federation leaders, getting murdered by Darth Vader, or Proto Vader, I suppose.
Or Dooku getting betrayed by Palpatine.
Yeah.
So, that look he gives, like, what, you motherfucker?
No, but the thing is, like, even then, like, what I like about the Clone Wars series is that there are moments where these characters are feeling the effects of we are going to war and it is affecting us. We are being affected because this is a gosh darn war and it's damaging us mentally. All right. We see the deterioration of Anakin Skywalker from, pretty cocksure young kid in the start to I'm going to just stab a dude. We see that. We see that development, and that is incredible. And I like that. So the fact is, if you're going to have movies in the modern age where people expect that level of complexity and then not have the characters, at least, like, would it have killed us for one scene with Finn where he sat down and, like, I've killed a bunch of people that I knew and that I even liked who are just like me and they didn't have a choice. And what does that make me now? It would be great to have that conversation. It would be great to have this little subplot. Like, it'd be great to have a subplot where Poe Dameron's all like, yeah, let's go blow them up. And then Finn's like, you do know that I know some of these people. You do know that I knew these people and I know what they've gone through and I was like them. Poe, if I hadn't saved you, you might have been shooting me out there. Oh no, I never thought of that. That's horrible. Romance. Sorry, I like the Poe and Finn romance idea. We should have had that. But this is it. Is that you had the opportunity to just thread in a little bit of complexity if you really had to. But instead, you've got Finn, who can I be brutally honest? There is no reason for Finn to be a stormtrooper past his introduction. There's nothing about that character that screams, I have to be a stormtrooper, because he's just generic. I hate saying it.
Sorry, go on now. What were you going to say?
He's generic 90s comedy black sidekick, basically from the word go. And it's like, I feel kind of odd complaining about it, but he just feels that way. He feels like the black character in Dungeons and Dragons half the time. And that movie's awful.
Sorry, you just remind me of, I didn't know whether to mention it or not, but there's a trailer for a film. It's out on, was it Future War or What's it
Yeah.
called? I'm just going to look up what it's called. It's on the
The one with
Amazon
Chris
Prime.
Pratt.
They're doing that. Pardon?
It's the one with Chris Pratt.
Yeah. Was it The War of Tomorrow?
The Tomorrow War. The
Tomorrow War, yeah. So that was something that I saw. It was, it's the latest big budget blockbuster, and I was considering giving it a watch. I was looking at the trailer though, and yeah, it's 2021, and it's got that 90s comedy, stereotype black comedy sidekick character, and it's like, oh, really? That's the kind of storytelling you're doing in this day and age? And it's like, it's so generic with like just the CG action. In fact, everything you've just talked about with like, okay, it looks like it's copying like the Attack of the Clones with like the arena creatures and stuff like that. It's like that level of CG, and it's just like, it's so generic. And I was like looking at the trailer and thinking, I can't bring myself to actually watch this. I know it's supposed to be the big blockbuster of the summer that we're looking forward to seeing, especially as it's free on Amazon if you've already got the subscription. It's like, oh wow, great, thank you very much for this offering. But then like looking at the trailer, I was just like, oh, I can't even bring myself to watch it, even for free. I dare say I will at some point. Probably late at night when I'm flicking through, there's nothing to watch. I've had a few beers and I think, I'll go on, then I'll stick it on. But it's not something I'm looking forward to. It's just going to be something to watch while I kill my brain cells. Glug, glug, glug. I can stare at this for an hour and a half. Why not? But that you were just saying like not so much now, but yeah, there was the old stereotype of the black comedy sidekick, and it fucking is that in this. In fact, there was a guy like that in the Godzilla vs. Kong as well, which I can't believe people didn't pull up a bit more. Yeah, it's 2021, man. There shouldn't be like relying on those old tropes again. It's quite, it's very disappointing. Hollywood, Amazon, are you listening? It's very disappointing.
We are disappointed.
But yeah, no, it really was like, it started and I thought, oh great, yeah, big action blockbuster, looks like a sci-fi. Oh, I'm interested in this. And then, all right, yeah, stupid time travel plot that don't really make any sense whatsoever. It's, seriously, you don't even have to scrutinize it. You just have to look at it and it falls apart. And, like really generic action sequences. And, oh, great, you've got this comedy stereotype from the 90s. Brilliant. I'll not bother with that one then. But if anybody else wants to watch it and tell me if it's any good or not, fine, I'll listen to your opinions. But I don't think that one's for me.
That's fair.
I did see in the reviews for it though, a lot of people are like, Chris Pratt fans who was like, oh yeah, Pratt knocks it out of the park again. Woo! Yeah, oh, he's brilliant in this one again. Woo! That seems to be the consensus of like the positive reviews. It's just Chris Pratt fans like praising him, but I've not seen anybody actually praising the film, or anything.
I like Chris Pratt.
Oh, I've got nothing against him. But when there's a film that's this sort of apparently big of scope and all the rest of it, and all people can say is Chris Pratt's good. He's like, well, what about the rest of it? Is the film any good? If all you can say is I'm a fan of Chris Pratt, so I liked watching Chris Pratt. It's like, well, that's great.
But there are better films to watch Chris Pratt in.
Yeah.
I like him in Guardians of the Galaxy. He's really good in that, quite frankly. But oh dear me. So. Right, is there anything else? Is there anything else on our big list, Treasure?
Our big list.
The end of it?
Let's see. What did I scribble down on the list then? Oh, it was more moaning, to be honest.
That's
so the other things that came out this week then. So there's that Amazon Prime, then the Future War, whatever the fuck it's called, Tomorrow War. But the other things that came out. So there's The Watch on BBC iPlayer, which is based on Terry Pratchett novel series. And then also on Netflix, Fear Street Part 1, 1984.
Yeah, so I must be honest, I've had an incredibly hectic week and I haven't had a chance to watch the first episode.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So, no, it's that really generic filmmaking where there's no artistic voice behind it. There's nothing like driving it. So, I don't know. Go back to the original Alien film. That's actually just on a script level could actually look kind of generic. It's only like, Ridley Scott comes in with his visionary, visuals and, pushes the boundaries on it. Actually makes it like, oh my God, it's a fucking classic. And then you get films like this where, it's sourced from the Discworld novels. There's no reason that this should fail. And yet within the first 30 seconds, I was like, oh, I can't watch this. This is just cringeworthy. And it's because it's like really, it's like it's been directed not from a director with an artistic vision, but a director who's assigning tasks to people. So it's like, okay, you need to film this sequence. Here's a rough storyboard. Go do it. You need to film this sequence. Here's a rough storyboard. Go do it. And then we'll just mash it together in the edit. And it's so jarring, and it's just the actors are clearly not getting any actual like
direction.
Or they're getting the direction, but they're not actually getting directed for that's appropriate for the actual where the camera is and stuff like that. So, for example, going back to Star Wars, for example, a scene that I didn't like in the original trilogy, Attack of the Clones, you know, when Anakin like comes back from like, oh, I killed all the sand people, boo hoo hoo. Right? The problem with that scene isn't necessarily him, but the way it's framed, like really far away from him. So you're not seeing the emotion on his face. You're just sort of seeing him and you know standing in the door going, oh, it's really sad this thing that I did, and it's like you need to frame the camera for the emotion of the character. If the person's going through an emotional thing, show the emotion on the camera. It's like so. When the character's being told you need to be portraying all this emotion and make it really big and big and big and blah, 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 but then the camera's like looking at something else completely different. It's like that performance is not actually playing well.
Being captured.
Yeah. And it's like, so The Watch, we got like 10 minutes in, like myself and Mrs. Treasure, we got 10 minutes in, we gave it a try. We ended up having to just drop it. So the humour falls flat, and Terry Pratchett's known for fucking humour, but the humour just falls flat on it. The performances I can't really complain about. It's just, like I say, I think they were being like directed to perform in a different TV show altogether. And the way it's just like been piecemealed out and then going back over to then Fear Street on Netflix, it's a similar kind of thing. It's so generic. It's so formulaic. And that's the problem is that it's not just that the story's formulaic, but the camera moves are formulaic in both these things. And you can see it's what I think it's referred to as like, you know, the factory filmmaking, where it's like a production line. It's like, right, you do this part, you do that part, you do that part. And they're just pushing the stories through the factory. Nobody's got any artistic integrity. No one gives a shit about it, about whether it actually looks good, as long as it looks, you know, appropriate to like the current, this is what the lighting effect should be. This is what the, you know, the color grading should be. And afterwards, it's like, you know, like people might hate Zack Snyder, but he's got a very clear vision of how he wants his color grading famously throughout his films. And it's different in each film as well. But yeah, now we've got like a set thing where modern cinema has to be this set thing. And that's what it is. It's just, yeah, it's just really depressing. And it's even more depressing to see people raving about it. And it's like, are you watching different films to me? Seriously, are you watching something completely different to me? Because it's absolute garbage. You know, I very rarely switch a film off unless it's really, really shit. I might give a film 5 minutes knowing I'm going to switch off just to see how bad it is. But once I sit down to actually watch a film, I'll normally give it a chance to play out to the end, because you never know what might happen in the final act. The fact it's following the act structure as well is a thing that I fucking hate as well in like the formula of films. Like, you know, we've got to follow the 3-act structure. It's like, well, no, you don't have to follow it at all. You can tell all kinds of stories outside of the act structure. You don't have to do it. But yeah, they can pull something out in the 3rd act, but quite often they don't. But some films, you sort of get partway through, and especially if Mrs. Treasure's falling asleep, it's like, well, I'm not sitting here watching it by myself. I'm switching that off. So yeah, that's really all I wanted to, the only reason they're on the list, because normally I put stuff on the list I want to talk about for like, oh yeah, this is something I want to geek out about and talk about. These are just sort of like examples, and then I'll throw Tomorrow World, the trailer for that, in that same batch. These are just like examples of the factory filmmaking where it's just, yep, you do this, you do this, you do this, and everything just looks exactly the same. It doesn't matter who's making it, who the director is, who the star is, whatever. It all ends up just coming out looking exactly the same. And, you know, because of the success of the Marvel films, a lot of that's actually emulating the Marvel style as well. Which, you know, I like the Marvel films for what they are, but I don't want
everything to be like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, I think they've made far too many of them like that. You know, I liked the first few, and then after a while, it's like, come on, you know, yeah, stretch the goalposts a bit.
I mean, on a sort of semi-related note, they're doing Good Omens 2.
Yeah.
Which I liked Good Omens 1. And if Neil Gaiman is still involved, which he is, okay, cool. That'll be interesting. I look forward to seeing what they do with that. But Terry Pratchett's dead. And Neil Gaiman did Good Omens with Pratchett. And there's something, and the thing is, there's a conversation that me and Tresh have all the time, which is there is a difference between, say, like the Doctor Who fan films that we do. There is a difference between the Doctor Who fan films that I do on my Todd where I am, and the Doctor Who fan films that Treasure and I make together, right? There is an indelible difference between them, because at the end of the day, one is made with one person's voice, and one is made with that unique meshing of two people's voices to create a third new thing, you know? And Good Omens 1, you know, it was obviously Pratchett had sadly passed by the time they made that, but Good Omens 1 was still sourced from the material that came from the imagination of Pratchett, but it's not going to have that so much anymore. How well can Neil Gaiman emulate that? How well does he want to? I can only imagine there must be, like, even if he's obviously agreed to do it, I can only imagine there must be mixed feelings about that, So, but,
I mean, I've seen replying to people on Twitter where people have said, like, oh, the first Good Omens was based on, the story, kind of thing, like, oh, what are we going to do for the sequel? Just make it up. And I've seen him reply sort of saying, like, well, how do you think the first one came about? We just made up the story. But yeah, no, as you say, though, without Pratchett being there, it's not going to be the same story. To be honest, Good Omens was a self-contained story. It had its own ending. So I'm not sure I really welcome it. You and I have had this conversation in private where, in general, I think a film should be a self-contained thing. And then, unless it's planned as a trilogy from the outset, for example, of a two-parter, as one self-contained story over 3 parts, but it's set as that from the very beginning, a film should just be one self-contained story and then move on to something else. So when they actually start making sequels from things, I'm like straight away like, I'm not sure about this because the first one was a self-contained story. So I've got a bit of like, that, sequel phobia about it. The first Good Omens TV show, it was good. I liked the story in general. I liked a lot of the dialogue, the plot twist, and I liked the performances especially. It did have that thing I was just complaining about, though, about the generic way of filmmaking it. It did look very sort of like, you've just got the cheapest sort of, you've qualified from film school, have you? Right, well, you know what to do. Just go and do what's set out here kind of thing, as opposed to getting a visionary director.
I mean, I don't want to be rude about it, but yeah, Good Omens does not look as high budget as it was. When you actually look at it.
I've not actually seen any clips or anything yet, so...
No, I mean, like, Good Omens 1 did not look as high budget as we know it was. It cost a lot of money.
Sorry. I thought you meant the new one doesn't look as high budget as the old one. I thought you'd seen some...
no, I don't think they started filming the new one yet. I mean, okay.
I literally have no idea where long it is in the process, other than I know it's being made.
I mean, like, I have a couple of problems with Good Omens. One of the problems I have with it, and this is very odd as a Doctor Who fan to be saying, but I've seen David Tennant's 10th Doctor enough now. I don't need to see it in everything. Like legitimately, every time he plays a character with a British accent, I feel like I'm just watching the 10th Doctor. Like,
it's the level of energy he brings with it. So, like, his voice with that level of energy.
It's like Kilgrave, for example. There were times I was watching Kilgrave where I'm just like, I'm just watching evil 10th Doctor in a purple suit going off and being evil. Like he's got the same energy, and he's got the same, I'm angry at you, I'm just angry, Tennant voice. And it's the same with Crowley, or however the heck you pronounce it. It's like, it's just angry Tennant voice, or, slightly awkward Tennant voice doing Tennant voice things. And it's like, I like him. He's a great actor. But
I think it's more when you see him in like more acting, more drama, I mean, when he's not, that's what I mean about when he brings that level of energy to it. It's when he's playing these kind of not so serious characters where he can, like,
Tennant.
To go into a little bit into like pantomime almost kind of thing, just takes it to this other level. But when you actually see him playing more like real life characters, I think that's when it's a bit different. Having said that, I've not really seen a great range of things. So I tend to like just, your sci-fis and your horrors and stuff like that. So, I've not really got much interest in watching Broadchurch, for example, which, is the other show that he was on. It was on.
He's good at that.
I'm sure he is. I'm sure everybody is. From what I've heard, everybody is. But yeah, it's just not something that's really appealed to me. But I saw him in another show. I think it's on Netflix, where he's basically in an interview room, in a police interview room, and he's just basically being interrogated. So it's just him in a room with 2 cops, and he's like, being interviewed. And over the course of it, you gather that he's being accused of some kind of I can't remember now if it's child molestation or child porn, but either way, it's
it's not Des, is it? It's not Des, is it? It's not Des, is it?
Des, no, it's a series of like different people each time in the room. But I can't remember what it's called. I can't for the life of me, which is no surprise there. But in that, that's much more toned down, and it's sort of like him just like, he's getting into character as opposed to just being David Tennant and being that David Tennant energy. He's actually like, right, who is this character? And is a despicable person. He's not someone I want to associate with, but I need to find that person within myself to get the performance across. So yeah, when you see him in those kinds of things, it is good. It's when he's going for okay, this is not a real person, so it just gets to be me having fun. It's like on Friday Night, it was again, he starts off like playing this character with the beard and all the rest of it, but that turns out to be a facade. Takes off the fake beard, and again, it just becomes like, oh yes, it's just
the 10th Doctor.
10th Doctor, but he's obsessed with sex and booze, and and it's.
So in some ways, it's the 10th Doctor.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Right. Well, if there's nothing else on the list apart from yet more stuff that's been filmed in factory style, okay. That's what's disappointing about that though is like I was rewatching some Capaldi episodes of Doctor Who, and it struck me how much the directors. But it just struck me how strong the director's voice was. In terms of like the actual like his opening episode, Deep Breath. It's not one of my favorites. It's pretty good, but it's not one of my favorites. But I love how strong the director's visual voice is in that. Like you've got these moments which they start off slow-mo and then he'll turn around and actually deliver the dialogue in regular time. Or, it'll swap.
For me, Deep Breath, I remember at the time, if you scour my Facebook posts, 10 years ago, however long ago it was when Deep Breath came out, you'll find a post where someone said, like, on the day when it came out, oh, what did you think? And I remember at the time, like, writing that it was the editing, or it was as if they'd filmed like 95% of it, and then there were like 5% that they'd not filmed. So they were just like trying to cut around it. So there were a lot of like, I don't know, jolting, jarring, like cuts between scenes. Where it's not like doing that as like an actual cut jump or anything like that. It was just literally like, hold on, wait a minute, how did they get from there to here? I don't know if you deliberately turned your screen off there. But
no, my mother was just ringing me.
Right. So yeah, so there was something with the editing. But I don't know if there was actually shots missing or if it was just like, right, we need to get the timing down, so we need to cut out as many little 2-second snippets as we can. But it felt kind of jarring, and that threw me out. But I did like when we finally got to see him sort of like in character at the end, like with the Clockwork Man. And it's like, all right, so now we're sort of seeing the kind of guy he is. And I know some people, a mutual friend of ours, in fact, who didn't like the breaking the fourth wall where turns the camera for that little look right at the very end. And it's like, the Clockwork Man, did he push or, did he jump or was he pushed? But I loved it. And I was like, yes, this is the sort of thing, I'm going to love this Doctor. This is going to be one of my favourite Doctors. But it was because we were talking about it last week. I went back and I wanted to rewatch a couple of my own favourite ones from the era because, not seen Capaldi for a while. So I went back and rewatched The Mummy on the Orient Express, which is one of my all-time favourites. And then, because we've been talking about it, watched Heaven Sent, which I then went on to watch Hellbent as well afterwards. And speaking of the director's voice, no, but on Hellbent though, the director's voice, so there's a lot of really good stuff. I didn't realise it was Rachel Talalay who was directing that one. It was like, a series regular in Doctor Who. But yeah, there's a lot of really great shots in that, which if it had been a less experienced director, shall we say, might have just gone for the lazy side, like the setup of like, right, stand in the middle, I'm going to frame the camera and so on and so forth. So there's just from the visual side of it, there's a lot to like on Hellbent for that side of things. The thing that I don't like about Hellbent though is the thing that puzzles me, should I say, about Hellbent is where exactly is this shed, this hut? Because it appears to be in the middle of nowhere, and then there's a massive crowd around, as if actually it's quite near the village, and then it's in the middle of nowhere again with no one around again. It's like, well, make your mind up. Where is it? What?
I mean, there's a lot about Hellbent that a lot of people don't like, most especially the Clara stuff. I actually have grown to appreciate that more as I've gotten older. And there's a bunch of little stuff about it that I really appreciate. Like, I like Gallifrey. I like the way Gallifrey is presented. It's a bit cheap. Like clearly Gallifrey is a bit cheaper than the last time we spent time there because there's more of Gallifrey to show, so they didn't have as much money to have these big empty voids and stuff. But like, for example, I like the fact that all these people who are like in the dry lands, come to see the Doctor. I like the fact that they're all dressed a bit like the first Doctor, but slightly lower class. I like the fact that, okay, we're sort of establishing now that that's not an aesthetic that the first Doctor had because he nicked it from Earth. No, that's an aesthetic the first Doctor had because his people, the people he spent time with as a child, wore that aesthetic. And it's sort of echoed a bit by the fact that Capaldi swaps back into that sort of Hartnell-esque Prince Edward look, which I love that, you know? I absolutely adore that kind of visual world building. And I love stuff like, I love the cloister wraiths. They were just like, oh, that's terrifying. That's genuinely terrifying. I mean, as an episode, it has its flaws, and I can't be the only person who really does not like me. Can't remember the actress's name, the lady from Game of Thrones. I can't stand that character. And what I can't stand about that character is, this might sound a little petty, but first off, it's yet another character come to tell the Doctor, ooh, you're bad, you've done a bad thing, or your morals are wrong, or oh, aren't you this, aren't you that? And it's like, stop lecturing the main character. All right, we've had, you know, whole seasons of bad guys lecturing this character off and on again, and it's like, it's kind of getting a bit tired by the time you get to Series 9, you know? But, you know, especially when it's a character who, the last time we saw this character, okay, first off, you're telling me that a bunch of random alien mercenaries have a chip in their head that will keep a human being alive till the end of time. You're telling me that is in actual fact the state of play here, that is what's going to happen. You're telling me that's that now, because that's that's like setting breaking. That is, that's like, I'm sorry, no.
Yeah.
But also she's just like, she's kind of smug and irritating. Like, yeah, and you know, it's the kind of smugness and irritatingness that if it was the Master, if this was like this actor playing the Master, you could sort of accept that the character was being like that to the Doctor because that character has earned being smug and irritating towards the Doctor. But this is just some jumped up little human that happens to have a chip in their head keeping them immortal. You know, a jumped up little human, I might add, who the last time we saw her, she was being scared out of her wits by the Doctor, being, you know, annoyed at her, you know. So it's a bit of a leap there, if that makes sense. I mean, she kind of feels superfluous as well.
For me, having her back. I mean, okay, so the Viking episode that she was originally in was a pretty poor episode, in my opinion. It was one where they really didn't have the budget, or they didn't have the time, which also not having the time might be because they didn't have the budget. But it's like the costumes were like, you know, off-the-shelf fancy dress costumes. You know, they weren't like real, you know, of the age. They weren't dirty. You know, everybody's like, people have like modern haircuts and stuff. It's like, you know, at least make them look like Vikings somehow. But beyond the aesthetic, I mean, her performance as the Viking girl, I thought was okay. It was then like the follow-up performance when she came back and she was like, oh no, I've been alive for the last, you know, 1,000 years or whatever. And it's like, yeah, that's when she started to grate on me a bit. And it's like, yeah, I'm not keen on this character. So to then have her brought back as like, you know, the big thing at the end when, you know, all the people of Gallifrey who were the most advanced civilization before other civilizations are now like, you know, they fell at the end of, you know, the end of time, they fell and couldn't find a way. But, you know, she managed to find a way by herself to just sit there in an empty room with like no food or anything like that. But, you know, whatever, you know, she's just watching the stars go out, which, you know, takes billions of years. But, you know, she would just sat there, you know, doing it again. It's like, oh no, but she's immortal, so she don't need food. It's like, well, how come, you know, she's not like skin and bones sort of thing? It's like, you know, she might not die, but she'd still be malnourished. Again, I know budget, they can't really do that. But seriously, to doing like, she's been sat there for 3 billion years with no food or anything like that, it would have been better to have like some like puppet, like, you know, skeleton, like, oh, Doctor, you're finally back. You know, that might have been a bit more interesting. But to have her just, you know, have her as her and not even complaining about being hungry after all this time or anything, you know, it's like, I don't know, it's like, I don't really believe the character. It, you know, and coming off the back of, you know, Heaven Sent and then Hellbent is like, you know, it's actually a decent episode, and I like a lot of the visual stuff, and like you said, like, you know, the cloister race and all the rest of it, and then like, you know, and then she's the finale, and it's like, oh, but the actual emotional stuff though between Doctor and Clara in the diner and all that side of it, that's actually quite heartwarming. It's a brilliant subversion as well. Like, you spend the entire episode thinking one thing, and then yeah, because I remember at the time when that came out, there'd been like leaked pictures of Jenna Coleman in the like, you know, the waitress outfit. So, you know, people are speculating like, oh, what's going on here? How can she come back? What's happening? Blah, 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 blah. So then to actually see it play out. And remember, when the episode starts, we, the audience, don't have a clue that about the story that's being told, kind of thing. So I remember seeing it like live at the time, and like everybody's like, "What's going on? Oh, how's she back?" And yeah, and it is actually really good storytelling. Apart from me, the character of me, she is like the one thing that the one piece of the puzzle that makes the rest kind of fall down a bit.
And she's kind of superfluous to that story, apart from delivering some, hey doctor, you're so wrong. Like I'm sorry, have Ophelia do that. Have the general do that. Have any of these characters who are equally old and authoritative, and actually that the doctor might actually listen to.
I just realised I only watched it like last week at some point, and I can't remember why they actually went back to Gallifrey at the end of time. What's the plot point? What's the plot point for them to go back to visit Gallifrey at the end of the time to then find me sat there?
I think if I recall correctly, it's been a much longer time since I watched the whole episode. The general theory is go to the end of time to outreach the range of the Time Lord's doohickey what's it that's keeping Clara from not being actually alive.
Yeah, that sounds familiar. And then, oh look, there's a character that we introduced a couple of episodes ago, as opposed to someone else who might make sense. But yeah, I'm not.
Yeah,
that was something that we talk about the Stephen Moffat era. That was sort of a thing of Stephen Moffat. They'd introduce things and then have them resolve something else, and it would be as if it was part of a bigger thing that was supposed to be more impressed by, or it had more of an impact on the overall canon or lore of Doctor Who, but it really wasn't. It's a character you just introduced. We're not going to be impressed by the fact that they've come back now. It's not the bigger impact. I mean, River Song obviously spans several series, so that's a bit more of a story there. But
and I quite like the way he brought back John Simm's Master for Capaldi's finale. I thought that was a good thing. So really random tangent. That was my favorite portrayal of John Simm's Master. I liked it
because I know a lot of people knew that he was coming back. I'd heard that he was coming back, but I hadn't heard that he was coming back. No, sorry, I did hear he coming back. Sorry. Some people knew the character who was playing in it, whereas I didn't know the character who was playing in it. So I was waiting for him to come back. It didn't occur to me that he might be coming back with prosthetics and all the rest. So I didn't actually know it was him. So then when it was the big reveal, I was like, oh, of course it's him. Oh, silly me. Yeah, of course it is. Tell you the biggest surprise that apparently everybody else knew, but I didn't, is apparently everybody else in the world knew that Christopher Eccleston was leaving, except for me. So imagine, for me, as a grown man watching the series, thinking I really like this new Doctor who's come back for Doctor Who. He's really great. And then watching the final episode of his series, and I'm thinking wait a minute, I don't think I like where this is going. And I honestly didn't know. I honestly didn't know that he was already he'd leaked that he was leaving, because this would be pre-internet being a very common thing, and I'd never sort of read the newspapers or anything like that. So unless you did actually go on the internet, which I didn't back in the day, you probably wouldn't really be aware of it so much. So yeah, I had no idea. So I actually saw that regeneration completely unawares as wait a minute, is he? No, wait, are they? Are they going to regenerate? Oh my God, what? And I just didn't have a clue. So I didn't know. When came back and David Tennant suddenly there, I'm like, oh my God, what? But we had actually watched Casanova that he'd been in before that, so I did sort of recognize him from that. So it was the guy from Casanova. Okay, yeah, sure. But yeah, I was completely surprised, and I loved Christopher Eccleston. So for me, it was I could see it was coming, and I was part of what? No, I like this guy. You can't do this. But then I was also kind of curious, who's it going to be though? And then because I'd seen Casanova, I was like, yeah, he'll do. I'll accept him. But yeah, it was. But apparently, everybody in the world well, I'll rephrase that. Nowadays, everybody claims to know about it at the time.
I knew because my grandfather bought the Sun at the time, and I saw it in the Sun.
Yeah. So nowadays, everybody claims that they knew, and they claims it was the worst kept secret in the world, which they always do about everything. Everybody claims that Jodie Whittaker being cast as a doctor was the worst kept secret in the world. When
I did not know. Here's the thing: I figured it was going to be a woman, but in Jodie Whittaker's case, I thought it was going to be. I didn't think it was going to be her. I thought it was going to be Phoebe Waller-Bridge or something.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of talk about maybe being a woman, maybe being this and that, but her name didn't even come up until 2 days before she was announced, because that's when they filmed it, and that's when someone who worked on it maybe went and placed a large bet on her. So that's the only reason her name came up, is because suddenly somebody bet $1,000 on her. But yeah, people after the fact, they always claim oh yeah, it's always the same though. When I remember series 6, people were speculating about what the one with the eye patch was going to be, and I remember on the internet forums at the time, every theory you can imagine were being thrown out there.
She's the rabbit.
Every single theory you can imagine was being thrown out there. So then when it finally gets revealed, like the theory that was closest to it, people like pointing out, going, see, I said that ages ago. I knew it all along. It's like, yeah, you said that. You also said this. But yeah, people always like to claim they knew all along, like after the fact. And yeah, I can't stand that kind of bullshit. But I hold my hands up though. I did not know that Christopher Eccleston was leaving at the time. So yeah, I saw that completely. I was completely taken unawares by that one. And yeah, it's an emotional reaction I'll never have again, because it's very unlikely they'll ever get a regeneration past me, just because of the way that just by having Twitter and Facebook and anything like that these days, it's going to be like, as soon as anything gets announced or revealed, it's going to be straight out there. So the only way you could do that is as soon as they announce Jodie Whittaker is leaving, is to just like, right, leave all social media and I'm not watching the news again, and nobody's allowed to speak to me at work or anywhere else until after they've announced. In fact, no, I don't, until after they've filmed the regeneration and I've actually watched it on the Christmas special, which will inevitably be. So
hey Tresh. Then I'll just be like, hey Tresh, it's this person, and you'll be like, you.
No, dun 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 dun. So yeah, it's like, shut up.
Yeah,
yeah, but that's the only way these days that you're going to avoid it. But yeah, Christopher Eccleston was a total surprise to me, and it does sadden me that it's never going to happen again, because there was, in that moment when I realised he was going to regenerate, and then like, that anticipation, like, it's all like in the moment, like, oh shit. The
thing that I was anticipating was, like, when I was a kid, I remember watching and I'm like, wait, is he going to be standing up? Is he going to be standing up? Is he going to be standing up? And then he doesn't standing up, and I'm like, he stood up.
Well, yeah, that was the other shocker for me, because I didn't know it was happening. That was like a double bluff. I was expecting him to fall to the ground or something. So then, boom, it really did take me aback, because I was expecting him to be like, okay, I'm going to lie down now and slowly have like a warping effect or something. I don't know. I wasn't expecting the big explosive, which is probably why they actually went for it. It was probably a plan for that particular scene, thinking people won't expect this regeneration effect. So they did that, and then they've kind of like just stuck with it instead of changing it every time like they did in the old days. But I mean, I like it though. I like it as an effect. But yeah, I think it was originally just done for the shock value in that first episode, thinking people won't be expecting that. And hey, it worked on me.
Fair enough then. So yeah, and with that, I suppose it's time to end the episode for the moment.
Yeah, I ran out of beer a long time ago, so I best go refill my glass.
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
And unfortunately, in this chair right here.
Oh gosh, darn it! Right. So anyway. So if you think we're idiots, or if you think we've made some really good points, or if you want to yell at us for how dare we talk about X thing because we are Y thing and we don't know anything, then by all means rant at us in the comments below. At this point, we'll take any comments we can get, guys.
I mean, to be honest, just if you want to tell me that actually Chris Pratt's War of Tomorrow's World is any good or not, whatever.
War of Tomorrow's World. I'm just imagining now, like Chris Pratt versus that baby from Tomorrow's World in the underwater thing. It's just like, but yeah. So if you want to tell us that we're idiots, tell us in the comments below, or hit us up on Twitter, where I am at Jed was here,
and I am at AK Treasure 1.
Indeed.
We'll see you out there, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Good night. All the 8K TVs and stuff like that, I realise it is actually porn that's doing it. So it's like, VHS won out because porn was coming out on VHS rather than the Betamaxes and all the rest. DVDs won out over Laserdiscs because porn was being produced on DVDs. It's like, it's porn that pushes the home entertainment industry. It really is. 3D didn't take off because people watching porn didn't want to have to put glasses on and stuff all the time. They would be able to switch it off quickly and not have to, hide the glasses and pretend that, that's why 3D TV didn't take off, because the porn users weren't interested in it. So instead, like the 4K and 8K, that got pushed instead. Because, like nature documentaries, I've always said, I can understand if you're watching a documentary, you want to see like all the pretty feathers and the details and stuff. But yeah, that's why it's getting pushed. Like, there's not that many documentary watchers out there, but there's like a hell of a lot of like people sat in the bedrooms with the 4K TVs hooked up, watching porn all the time. Want to see every paw on the porno actress's, butt or whatever. So that's something I was going to get into in the show, but
turns out the internet really is for porn.
Yeah.
Oh god.